Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Preeti, thanks for being here. It's lovely to have you at the ET WLF.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Right. So let me start by saying that I think in the last many decades, Google has made some really big, bold bets on India. I think 5 years back, it announced a 10 billion digitization fund. Last year, it even topped it with a 15 billion commitment towards making data centers, a AI hub in Vizag. Let me ask you that when you talk to enterprises in India, in terms of their understanding and the excitement around the AI deployment, what gives you this confidence to have such a large build out in India? Because I was catching up on one of your conversations and you said that the Vizag data center is apparently the largest outside of the US.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. When we talk about industrialization, countries invested in building railroads and highways and power grids. And that is what powered GDP in that time. When we're talking about the AI era, I mean, data centers, the compute infrastructure is what is the new national grid, so to speak, if it is to power our economy. And for us, when you look at the India AI mission as well, the government has clearly stated that compute capacity is very critical and foundational to sort of drive this momentum forward in the AI era. So, from a Google perspective, it is very critical that we have massive digital, adoption in our economy. Everyone knows about DPI, right? But if we are to have this have a big economic impact, we really need the compute, we need the subsea fiber cables, we need the security protocols, we need the foundational models, we need the application layer, we need cutting edge infrastructure to power all of this. And hence, our faith and investment that we are partnering with India and the ecosystem here to power the country forward. And by the way, when we talk to enterprises, the demand is absolutely there. I'll just give you an example. We are way past the era of experiments and proof of concepts. So let's take Tata Steel, right? They bypassed all the incremental proof points and studies and straight away deployed, 300 specialized AI agents in 9 months, which are delivering gains in terms of, safety at the shop floor level, in terms of invoicing and all of those gains. So the demand is absolutely there, and there are multiple enterprises in retail, in manufacturing, in financial services that are deploying AI. And we are very proud and privileged to be partnering with Government of India and the Indian ecosystem to be investing in and providing the infrastructure.
Sure. So, like you're saying that you're very optimistic about the demand. But let me ask you, are you also looking at India as an export hub for some of these services out of your Vizag data center? And also, can we look at more expansion in the future?
So I think it is about, firstly, it's a 1 gigawatt capacity, and it is about servicing the loads that are required to support the Indian ecosystem. That is very, very critical. We work very closely with large enterprises, who have access to a lot, but equally important for us is to power up the Indian startup ecosystem. I'm super bullish, it's such a thriving ecosystem. Our founders are very innovative, they take big bets, they know how to work well both to solve local, for hyperlocal solutions, and how to think global. So first thing first, build out the 1 gigawatt capacity, and then making sure we are partnering with the ecosystem to help them scale the solutions both for India and globally.
Right. Preeti, since you mentioned about startups, let me ask you, what are your observations of the kind of solutions and services that are being built out of India as far as the Indian startups and the AI ecosystem is concerned?
Oh, I'm so excited about the Indian startup ecosystem. Love the innovation, love the ambition. I meet so many founders in tier two, tier three cities as well when we travel. And many of them think not just India, but they think about solving for and finding users across the globe. And they've been successful as well. I don't know how many people know that India has the highest number of funded consumer AI companies, so that tells you the scale of ambition that the founders have. And for us, it is about partnering with those founders, because for Google, the ethos, when we've been here in India for 20 plus years, it is about partnering with everyone. So it is about the magic of the compute and the models and the infrastructure getting married to the innovative thinking of the founders. And, the other thing that we look at when we work with Indian founders is AI will not work for India if you're just bringing a model developed overseas and deploying it here. It has to work in a very local, unique context and the problems that we have, and language is very critical for that. So, one of our other efforts really is to make sure that our models are contextualized for India's diversity of languages, dialects, accents, colloquial understanding, because the founders then take, for example, our open models and build application layers.
I was catching up one of your earlier conversations, and you said that models have to reach a level where they understand that postnatal care in India is about Gond ka laddu. Now, how do we reach to that level, and what are you doing to make sure? Because India is a diverse country, it's very huge, it's very different, and it is very challenging to also capture all the nuances.
So, this has been a top priority. And first of all, I'm very happy to state that, Gemini, our model, Gemini Live, is now available in 25 English languages, including Maithili, Bhojpuri, Sanskrit, because that is a genuine effort to make sure it's widespread. And it's a big focus area for us to solve for languages which have zero corpus from a digital point of view. So we've been partnering with the Indian Institute of Science over the past 2, 3 years to sort of have, digitizing the languages spoken in 773 districts of India, and we're recording 150,000 hours of spoken speech. And this is not just, when we think about Hindi, Hindi is not just one language, it's the different accents which the AI model has to be trained on to recognize if it has to solve for the voice centers of different enterprises. It is about colloquial usage. So, for example, in the past, when we were using AI, it would be simple syntax translation, which comes across very stiff grammatically and doesn't connect with the intent of Indian users. Take muhavre. Bandar, bandar kya jane adrak ka swad. How will you make sure that your AI, understands some of these colloquialisms? So it is about capturing those data sets, voice data sets, and then partnering with the government of India's Bhashani project, where we make these high fidelity data sets available to everyone so that founders in India can use these data sets. So I'll give you examples. Like Shunya Labs has used the data sets that Google has provided through Project Vani and Bhashani to provide solutions for 200 plus languages with a much lower compute cost. Or we have SandLogic, which has used Project Vani database to take multiple Hindi accents across multiple states in India to reduce transcription errors in their calls. And these are very critical for commercial success. So, whether it's commercial usage building on top of these models that we build, or for AI for social good, our effort as Google is do the best you can so that you're contextualizing for, like I said, Garo as a language, which had no digital presence. But when we make that available, then AI models can be built for that population that speaks that language.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting to see that how you're partnering with the Indian startup ecosystem. Some of these efforts. Very interesting. I want to now touch upon another very important topic, which is sovereignty. I mean, I think the incidents or events of the last few months have all made us realize that how AI is increasingly becoming a very important geopolitical tool, and sovereignty is becoming a big ask. So, when the world is becoming such a volatile place, how can India safeguard its interests?
India has strong, strengths. Let's be very clear. We have an amazing talent pool of engineers. We've been successful in building very, good businesses which support global sort of enterprises. We are now very good in terms of the infrastructure that is being invested in by Indian companies and the hyperscalers. And we have, India AI mission and the government being very, very laser sharp on making sure that we are building for the future this capability. So when we think about sovereignty, I think it's very critical. Sovereignty is about having control and choice. Both are equally critical. And it is not just about having foundational models. Yes, have the foundational models, but for a country like ours, given the skill sets and the strengths that we have, it's about building the application layers and how do you build that very strong, what I call the AI services economy. And that's what I love about our startup ecosystem. And so having that application layer, having very strong security protocols. So one of the things that we've been very focused on is that when regulated enterprises or government of India has to run workloads which are sensitive, how do you make sure that there is a totally air gapped solution, which is cut off from the public or the physical internet, and your prompts, your model weights, all of that stuff does not leave the perimeter, and you have low latency when you're processing. So very critical to make sure that there is strong partnership if we are to scale some things, but equally build, strong, build your strength in all of these areas. It's important.
Right. So building your strengths in all
And
important areas.
control and choice, both equally important.
Right. Let me talk about security now. I think because we can't have the conversation about digital without making sure that we have enough safeguards in place.
The defenders have to be right all the time to make sure they are safeguarding critical data, user, protection, and all of that. And this is where AI truly acts as a force multiplier because it helps us catch up and make sure that we are really robust. So from a Google point of view, we've looked at this problem from three lenses. One is the user, the other is the enterprise, and then we are talking about the web. So when we think about the user, we have deployed the best of our AI. And when we think about Android, we use AI to make sure that we are preventing upfront billions of, reach outs through either messages and fake links and all of that. So yes, fraud may happen, but we prevent a lot using AI at our disposal, whether it's the DigiCoverage, program that we have through Android. And then, looking at some of the very unique kind of scams that happen in India, we have things in our phones where you will get an alert on your screen where it'll stop you from sharing your screen with someone which looks like fake. So AI becomes very critical in preventing that. When we think about enterprises, I did reference having the air gap solutions where your sensitive workloads can run completely disconnected and super secure. When it comes to the open web in the AI era, Google was the first. We pioneered something called Synth ID. Now, this is an invisible watermark that is embedded in AI generated content. And its strength is that it's very resilient to filtering or cropping. So it will just still show up. And we've shared this Synth ID with 15 news providers in India so they can check for content provenance. That is very, very key. And then, coming back to my language point, if we are to act, as the trusted protector, our AI has to understand Indian context and language, because to solve for Bharat's security, your AI has to understand all the ways in which scams can arise in our context. That is very, very key. So the Google ethos in our engineering and AI teams has always been designed for security at the starting stage. It is not an afterthought that you bolt on, it is that. And we are providing solutions like Code Mentor and all of that to companies like Flipkart, which not only are able to detect malicious, malware, but also repair it, because it's not about identification, it's also about providing the security, and patching it up. So multi-layered approach, very critical if the digital economy has to scale.
Right. I want to talk about another very important issue, which is about jobs. I think for a very long time, India has the advantage of having a demographic dividend, but I think now we need to move to a capability dividend. How do we make sure that this entire anxiety about AI taking away jobs is in some way transformed in the way that we can talk about how India can take an advantage of AI and our frontline workers have more opportunities rather than the threat of being displaced through AI.
So I think it is very important to recognize that with any new technology, the kind of jobs that people are doing undergoes a bit of a change. So more, yes, some jobs may change completely and go away, but equally it's more about jobs undergoing a change. And therefore it is very important to partner with the ecosystem. And this is a private public partnership. Are we upskilling people across the different layers, whether private, public sector, our frontline workers in the health, social sector? And AI can be a force multiplier. You can use AI to upskill people much faster and scale better than you could pre AI. But it's also about how to use AI to be far more productive and effective. One or can't do it alone. So we doing a fair bit of work, and I'm aware of so many others who are out there working on solid programs from schools to teachers to colleges to professional institutes, one on training, but it is about making sure that we are all not using AI just as a chatbot or as a productivity tool, but truly, how can you learn, be very comfortable so that you stand out from others? Because it's about how do you use it to maximize your output and your creativity.
Right. Preeti, in closing, I just want to ask you one question and give me a headline here. If you were sitting on in 2030 at the Economic Times World Leaders Forum and you were to look back at the audacious goal that India has set of having a 1 trillion digital economy, what is the one line or one headline that you would say which defines Google, India, and AI?
I wouldn't link it to a figure. I would link that headline to how India's core of small enterprises, farmers and workers powered the 1 trillion digital economy. Look, we all at Google, we have the privilege of working with big enterprises, and we know that they have scale, they have capability, they have financial resources. But the heartbeat of India lives in tier two, tier three, rural India. It lies in the torso and the long tail, and it is about using AI to empower all of those people so that the economic value and benefits of AI empowers them, and they are the ones who are driving that $1 trillion economy. That is the most critical thing, that AI reaches everyone and they are benefiting as well, not just a chosen few, but AI for all.
Right. Not just a chosen few, but AI for all. We'll end this conversation with that. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Let's have a huge round of applause for Preeti Lobana.